Alex and I have been friends, and also I've really been following his work because I'm very interested in longevity personally. I am very interested in living for a very, very, very long time. So he's personally very interested in Alex's work. But then I noticed about 6 months ago, he mentioned that they were adding a psychological element to the aging clocks that they've been working on. So I'm wondering, Alex, can you tell the audience, what is an aging clock? What is deep longevity doing? And then after that, we'll go into the psychological part. But I want to frame it for everybody so they understand how extraordinary it is that you started to think about this area.
So sure. Thank you very much for having me. I'm dialing in from Beijing, China today, and it's middle of the night. So if I get disconnected for one reason or another, I'll very quickly reconnect. I have 4 devices here to ensure that we get around any firewalls. And I'll very quickly share my screen just to give you a gist of what the aging clock is. Just so it's not kind of pure words. A picture is worth 1,000 words, or if it's actually connected to the genome, then it's worth 1,000 genes, as we like to say. So what we specialize in at Deep Longevity, and as Jeffrey correctly pointed out, it's a spin-off out of Insilico medicine. We specialize in building age predictors using deep neural networks. And we're doing this since 2015, so pretty much at the very kind of dawn of deep learning revolution. And what I figured out very early is that everybody is different, so not everybody has cancer, not everybody has diabetes. However, every living being has age, and age is such a universal feature that it brings together pretty much everything else. So everybody has a date stamp. Everybody has age. So now you can use large populational data sets, longitudinal data sets, as they say, to train deep neural networks on pretty much any data type. So that changes with age. So think of it as a very large deep neural network with many neurons on the input. Let's say if you are doing it on a blood test, you would have the quantity of each marker in a blood test going into each neuron on the input layer. And then you have many layers of neurons in a latent space, and you are predicting just one feature, which is age. So you can take many markers from a blood test and predict the age. And then you can, once this network is trained on millions of blood tests or any other data types, you can interpret this deep neural network and interpret and get those features that are most important for prediction. You can construct pathways, identify targets, build causal graphs, and even generate synthetic data. So think about deep fakes where age is a generation condition. So we've perfected this technology in blood tests, and then we started looking at other areas like even psychology, because it turns out that we do change quite a bit during aging. And I'll skip a few slides. Basically, we built many of those aging clocks on different data types. And by the way, if there are any investors in the room, we're fully funded, but I must tell you that this is a huge trend. So this year, I think at least 6 companies that were started around aging clocks, because there are so many applications for those clocks. And if you see a company, if you see a researcher doing that, fund them. And we also integrate many of those clocks into one central score called age metric. Again, we're relying on many different data types, and I'm not discriminating any data type. I use pictures just as well as I use transcriptomics. Of course, transcriptomics, I think, is the most valuable data type, is gene expression. And then we published a review on psychology of aging. So, what I started feeling sometimes a little bit older than I probably should. There was something happened in my life, and I kind of started thinking about, why am I aging so fast? And you turn 42, and well, I'm 41 right now, and you start getting into what's called a midlife crisis. So I thought, things are changing. So now, if I look back at myself 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't even be friends with the same person. So things are changing, and I started looking at psychological age, and we kind of define psychological age as the predicted chronological age using a deep neural network trained on healthy people. And we also, when we do train those predictors, we try to use modifiable features, modifiable factors, so that when you interpret the deep neural net and identify the most important features, you can also modify them. And we saw that there is abundant amount of evidence from prior studies showing that there is a connection between those modifiable factors through the psychological aging into biological age, mental health, and many other features. And right now we have a paper in review, last phases of review. It's already, so you guys are seeing something that is completely unpublished.
Wow.
And we have, yeah, so we have a paper called Psycho-Age and Subjage, development of deep markers of psychological and subjective age using artificial intelligence. We built two predictors. One is predicting psychological age, so basically chronological age in the healthy state, and another one is subjective age. That's when people are asked how old do they feel. And basically, we try to predict this feature as well from surveys. And we use a very large data set of different surveys from Midlife United States study and a few others. And we built a predictor now that is 6.7 years accurate for psychological age and 7.3 years accurate for subjective age. And if you think about, self-reported data, it's very variable. So it's much more variable than some of the biological data types. So I think, 6.7 is very accurate. That's how we build those aging clocks, just for your reference. So we usually take large longitudinal data sets, behavioral data sets. We select the data sets that are more appropriate. We clean them up. We then standardize them and look for data sets that have standard features for 10,000 profiles or more with 200 plus features.
Wow.
Then we create a testing set. And yeah, we do some feature engineering, and we train deep neural networks. So we basically look at most important features. We have one with 50 features for subjective age, 50 features for psychological age. And here I'm going to stop because it's an interview. Sorry, I kind of had to explain this.
No, I mean, I think you're right. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And so, I guess the question is, it's like, if I understand it correctly, then basically it's like all of these different measures go into an aging clock. And then an aging clock is one of the tools that is used to develop longevity drugs and longevity drug discovery for what you're working on. And so, so my question is like, how might we use these, like, how do you expect to be able to, or how do you hope to be able to use these? I remember when we did the overbriefing, you said that eventually you could see psychologists maybe creating things, and that people, that people using these aging clocks to start to create other interventions for people. So how might we use this connection?
So again, what we were going to publish in this paper is that those aging clocks, psychological and subjective aging clocks, they're actually correlated with mortality. So that's what you want to show, and they are also correlated with quite a bit with the various diseases. So we see what kind of features contribute most to the prediction of psychological and subjective age. We see that some of them are modifiable, and now the psychologist can actually modify your age, your perception of age, and your psychological age. And one of the most brilliant scientists in psychology of aging who I've ever encountered is Laura Carstensen out of Stanford. So she was the first one to proposed a theory. It's called social emotional selectivity theory, or SST for shortly, as an acronym. So SST is a very popular term nowadays in psychology of aging. She's very highly cited, and the very gist of this theory is that the longer you expect to live, the younger you are going to behave, or vice versa. So if you expect to live a shorter life than most, you're going to behave as an older individual. And she showed that in multiple studies and also in large populational data sets coming from, Africa, for example, where people don't expect to live very long, or in Hong Kong, she co-published a paper on how psychology changes and the expected time horizon changes with the various events. And she also showed that it's possible to modify your expected time horizon. So basically longevity expectations. And we also in the study show that some of the features, that modifiable features that significantly contribute to our psychological age and subjective age, are the features that define your time horizon. Basically, the most important feature, the most important date that you have in your life, in addition to your date of birth, is actually the date when you are going to die. So that's the date that makes everything kind of roll around it. So if you can convince yourself that this date is going to be much further in the future, and you are going to live a much healthier life, and of course, if you are doing that on the physiological level as well, it's great. But even if you do it on a psychological level, it looks like it will have a lot of benefits. So even if you change that one simple feature, the date when you expect to die, or the year when you expect to die, you're going to benefit. So I think that we are going to see, after we publish and after more people get into this field, and of course, it's actually a pretty developed field. After more people realize that there is a huge benefit in stretching your longevity expectations, we will see longevity psychology maybe, or the field of longevity medicine that will bridge your psychology and biology as well.
Oh wow, that's so interesting. The one of the things that I have been thinking about is I have read some of the studies, the Ellen Langer studies about where people were momentarily convinced that they were actually younger than they are, and it sort of showed up in the way that they behaved. I mean, I think have you seen anything about? I guess today most people expect to live to about 80, 85, and some of the conversations that we've had about like what you think the far range of that ultimately will be, and how big of an impact do you think that the psychology will have on that, on people really being able to do it? Like, does it get us 5 years? Does it give us 10 years? Like, what are your expectations?
Well, again, from the biological standpoint, we know the limits currently. The longest living female was 122 and a half, and she smoked and drank and didn't really follow any rules. And if we doubt that she lived to that age, because of course it's actually a quite controversial story, the second longest living was 119. So it's not too far off. And those people did not really tailor, did not design their lifestyles or lives to live to such a long age, so such an advanced age. So I think if you were to make it competitive and make it basically design your entire life for longevity, you could possibly beat those records. And it's actually pretty easy to convince yourself, especially if you're competitive, that you can do better than them. In terms of how much benefit you're going to derive by convincing yourself that you are going to live longer, that's a very good question. We don't know yet. I would expect maybe 3 to 4 to 5 years at least. But also, Nicole, I will actually ask you a controversial question, if you don't mind, since it's a dialogue, right? How much do you think, how many years we can add to average life expectancy in the United States if we completely eliminate cancer?
Probably at least 10 to 15 years.
So that's a very expected answer, but multiple studies demonstrate that at birth, you would add 2.5 to 4 years. At the age 65, you are going to add 1.5 to maybe 2 years. So it's actually not much, because something else is going to kill you. And I think that, if it doesn't sound like much, if you design yourself, if you design your lifestyle, and if you convince yourself that you're going to live significantly longer and it's going to add you additional 5 years of life, doesn't sound like much, but actually on average, if everybody does it, you can benefit as a population. And I think that more consumer companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon should be getting in this field and getting consumers to be more optimistic, because they will live longer, they will consume more, they will spend more, and it's actually just a good altruistic thing to do as well. In terms of in terms of biology, and in terms of how other people think about and how they form their longevity expectations, I actually published a paper a while ago as a single author. So in 2013, I think, I did a survey of pension fund managers and actuarial scientists and consultants, people who know about longevity, right, who manage actuarial tables. And those actuarial tables, they actually drive the economy. Like 1 year of change in mortality tables for the United States could have dramatic economic effects, right? Because it basically would contribute significantly to the liabilities of the entire nation, right? You have to pay 1 year more Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, and that's about what, 35 plus thousand per capita. And I asked them, how do they form longevity expectations? Most of them look at family history, mortality tables, and pretty much nobody accounts for biomedical advances when forming their longevity expectations.
Right.
So even, yeah, and most of them answered that they expect to live around 80, to around 80. Some of them expected to live to 90. Pretty much nobody answered that they are going to live over 100. And actually, most of them answered that they don't want to live over 100, which is completely kind of nonsense to me. So people are afraid of living longer because they think that they're going to be frail. So the idea is that you need to convince people that they're going to live longer, plus they're going to be much healthier than their parents. So the prior history should not be the benchmark for the future.
So if I'm understanding it right, it's sort of like the people are afraid to live longer because they think that they're going to be frail, and they're part of the frailty that they have is a combination of how long they think they're going to live, and so thus the behavior that they have that supports their longevity. So it sounds like there's two things that need to happen. One, it's the drug discovery and the longevity that work that you've been doing already, and then the second part, it's the changing of the mindset. One of the things I would love for you, because we didn't actually start with it. It's like I love our conversations about why you got into longevity, in the first place, in the sense that one of the things that you said to me, which I would love for you to go into, is that, it's, you want humans to be able to continue to develop, to be able to have that game changing, ability of us to, continue to evolve and develop, and you feel sort of the tangible loss of the genius of all of the people, who we lose too early, before they've made their full contributions. And we had talked about Quali and Wally, and how the way that the world is set up right now, people are optimizing for these goals, like money and status, and there's these other things, as opposed to sort of optimizing for this ability to grow and develop and explore and continue to contribute to the human race. If you could talk a little bit about that and how you got into longevity in the first place, I would love to share that with our audience.
So sure, love to talk about that. So nature, Mother Nature is very unfair, and it's actually pretty cruel. So whatever is natural is not necessarily good for you. Like, think about pollen that in the woods that make you allergic, etc. So nature wants us to come into this world, compete, reproduce, take care of our young, and then decline and die, without putting a bullet in our brain and into other people as well. So that's why there are changes in psychology that prepare us for imminent decline and demise, regardless of how competitive we are, and regardless of how ambitious we are. And we tend to pack this expectation of decline and death very deep into our subconscious. So we try to strategically ignore this process, and we strategically ignore and deceive ourselves that some other events are more important. And humans are very good at optimizing for scores, right? So think video games. Before people invented scoring and leaderboards, video games and games in general were not very popular. So you always are trying to optimize for higher score, trying to win. So when money came along, people started optimizing for money. So you're trying to get as much money as possible to get high on the leaderboard, and specifically, like, billionaires would like to get to the very top. But nobody is competing on longevity, and actually that's probably the most important currency in the world. Time. You can currently convert time into money, but you cannot convert money into time. And at the same time, it's the most altruistic endeavor to extend human longevity, because if you think about pretty much any other cause, climate change, well, of course, it's an important cause, but it's not going to kill us very quickly. Increases in unproductive longevity and aging in general is killing the economy right now, and then killing the economy in the U.S. Because if you look at the national debt accumulation, quite a bit of that is coming from the aging population. Even though we ignore that and we try to assign the debt to something else, but it is the aging population that is driving it, and it's happening everywhere. So from the economic perspective, it's extremely important to fight aging. But also, if you think about just humans, just your own individual contribution by profession, a good doctor can probably save, quote unquote, treat 10,000 patients in their life. I don't know even if it's that. And let's say you add 10 years to each one of them, 10 years of life to each one of them. That's 100,000 life years, and usually you treat them later in life, so those are not ultra high quality years. if you find a drug that increases the life of every person by 1 year globally, you just generate 7.8 years, 7.8 billion years, because everybody's going to benefit at least if you do kind of the net present value of life that you generate. It could be tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of life years that you generate with one drug that increases the life for everybody by 1 year, quality life. So I think that's extremely important to optimize for longevity and try to contribute to everybody's longevity as the first priority. Because if you reproduce right now, for every kid, you probably get what, 80 to 100 years that you generate for, again, without discounting. If you have 2 or 3 kids, you've got 500 years, 400 years. If you develop a drug that extends everybody's life by 1 year, you have 7.8 billion years. So, if anybody is counting up there, if this is a video game, or if this is, if you believe in a simulation that some god created, and if somebody is counting, they're probably counting the life years that you're creating. So, if you want to be good, go longevity.
Excellent. Well, and I love, the understanding that when people think that they're going to live longer, they actually behave in a way that allows them to live longer. They take care of their body in a way that allows them to be more healthy when they have that expectation. And so, I love that psychological aging clocks are now in your model. I think that you're brilliant, and I love that you're working in the space that I'm working in, because that means we can spend more time together. And I really appreciate you staying up to 2 a.m. To do this talk with us.